Commitment 2000.
10 years of leadership in political journalism.
Let's ask our political team out at UCLA.
At Hearst Television, we dedicate ourselves to coverage that will serve our communities. And the midterm elections of 2010 offered us the best opportunity yet to engage viewers and produce creative and informative content for our audiences on television and online. Hello, I'm Mike Goucher. This was the year television advertising and partisan rhetoric dominated the political discourse. What was accurate, and how could voters sort through the facts? At Hearst Television, we believe it's our obligation to help set the record straight. And our 25 stations producing news did that once again with our Commitment 2010 coverage. In fact, during this midterm election, we aired 67 debates and produced more than 200 hours of political coverage. That's more than our promised 10 minutes per day of candidate coverage in the 30 days before the election. We believe what we do is a journalistic imperative. For the 10th year running, through our debates, our truth tests, issues pieces, enterprise reporting, candidate profiles, and digital content, our station has worked hard to put the voters' needs first.
It's the worst economy in decades, and the folks in Washington are living it up.
At the very least, it's an ad bound to spark some chuckles. A knockoff of the jib-jab style, the ad seeks to link Democrat Frank Cradaville with two favorite targets of conservatives, the president and House Speaker.
But there's one face you might not expect to see, our old friend Frank Cradaville.
Cradaville's locked in a tight race to hang on to his first congressional district seat against Republican Andy Harris. The two have waged a pretty nasty fight through TV advertising. But the dance line ad didn't come from Harris. Instead, it was paid for by the Commission on Hope, Growth, and Opportunity. What's that? A tax-exempt 501c4 organization, which makes the next question, who is that, very hard to answer. The Commission's website, created just 2 weeks ago, says its mission is to influence policy for free market economic growth. It lists a Washington, D.C. address, phone number. The listed contact is a lawyer. What you don't know about the Commission is where its money comes from. Because it's a 501c4 and not a political committee, it is not required to disclose its donors.
Got up this morning on my way to work. Webster's raised all the tolls. Ouch, that kinda hurt.
Okay, let's take a closer look at that billboard. Vote Webster for higher tolls? An easy one for the truth meter. False. No such billboard exists. Grayson's people called it a bit of satire in the ad. But the claim that Webster inserted a 25-cent toll increase into the 2008 transportation bill is a serious one. And for that, we need the truth meter. Did Webster call for a quarter hike in tolls in the 2008 transportation bill? False. For several reasons. I researched the state 2008 transportation bill, and yes, there is a provision authorizing expressway authorities to raise tolls every 5 years. Webster voted for it, but the measure never specified a 25-cent amount.
Corbett's plan could slash Meals on Wheels, cut home health care services, stop Alzheimer's outreach, and limit funding for senior centers.
Misleading. The ad is based on statements by Corbett about the need for widespread budget cuts. But Corbett has not talked about cutting any of those specific senior programs. In fact, many of those programs are funded with lottery money, which would likely be immune from any budget cuts. And most of the money for Meals on Wheels comes from the federal government, not the state.
We can't go back. Iowa must forge ahead.
The latest Culver ad to hit the airways makes 3 claims about Republican Terry Branstad: that he will close preschools, kill the Iowa Power Fund, and ban stem cell research. True or false?
Absolutely untrue to say.
Branstad's campaign says the former governor does not want to close preschools, but wants to change the way they're funded. Branstad is pro-life and against embryonic stem cell research, but is in favor of adult stem cell research. And will he kill the Power Fund?
Working with economic development professionals around the state, it'll determine what needs to stay, what needs to go, maybe what needs to be boosted. But to suggest just unilaterally that he's going to get rid of the Power Fund, again, is a total mischaracterization of his opinion.
$80,000 a year job created to bribe a state senator.
This is the political attack ad launched by State Senator Kenneth Corn just about 2 weeks before the general election. In it, Senator Corn ties Senator Todd Lamb to a political corruption investigation at the state capitol. Today, Oklahoma County District Attorney David Prater, who spearheaded that investigation, said the ad was misleading and falsely accuses Senator Lamb of being a target of the probe.
And it completely mischaracterized the investigation itself and the involvement of Senator Todd Lamb.
Senator Lamb issued the following statement about the ad, saying, quote, "What makes this more saddening is that Senator Corn knows this situation personally and knows there is absolutely no basis for this attack. In fact, he even voted for the same bill." Senator Corn's campaign fired back with this response, saying Prater's assessment is wrong and they stand behind the controversial ad.
Her brother's wind farm got over $100 million stimulus dollars.
True. Robin Carnahan's brother Tom got a $107 million stimulus grant. But that's her brother Russ, the congressman in this picture. And the commercial's also correct that Tom Carnahan's a big political donor, mainly to Democrats. But this claim,
the Carnahans get a real windfall.
We get the bill.
Is not supported. In a newspaper story, a spokeswoman for the Treasury says the wind farm awards were based on merits, not connections. Treasury has no discretionary authority on this, she said.
This is ultimately your government, and you deserve to know how it works.
Ever since the governor's first day in office, he's promised openness.
What we're about is trying to make information more available to regular citizens.
But his administration regularly fails to deliver.
Our own experience is that your administration is not forthcoming, and I'll give you an example.
I'm not going to argue with you about it.
Team 5 Investigates found the Patrick administration routinely failing to follow the public records law. Whether you're trying to get a copy of your own motor vehicle accident report or just details on how your tax dollars are being spent. Time after time, state agencies either ignore requests, redact so much information the documents are pretty much useless, or charge so much money you can't afford them. And it's not just those of us in the media getting stonewalled.
Since the founding of the nation, the law has been clear. You have to be an American to vote in America.
I certainly do have a problem with somebody who's not a citizen voting in our country.
I think you should be a citizen to vote.
But according to this letter, 12 non-citizens in Western Pennsylvania are registered to vote. The letter from the United States District Court in Pittsburgh notified Pennsylvania's Department of State of 12 registered voters who are non-citizens.
The puzzled looks tell the story. We asked voters in Graham, Thomasville, and Greensboro if they could identify the people in these 8x10 photographs.
That one's, I want to say Barnes.
Okay. Who's this?
I don't know her.
He looks a little familiar.
He looks a little familiar, but her not at all. That's not good for her. Okay, who is he?
Oh, my God. He's a politician.
He's a politician?
Is it you?
I'm sorry?
Is it you?
No, it's not me. It's actually Richard Burr, the U.S. Senator from North Carolina, and Elaine Marshall, North Carolina's Secretary of State. They're running against each other in next month's Senate race. But despite Burr's 16 years in Congress and Marshall's 14 years as Secretary of State, we found that many voters simply don't recognize them.
Elaine Marshall does not have the resources in her own campaign chest to go on the air, and she hasn't been helped by the National Democratic Party.
Between bites of meatloaf and burgers at Libby's Blue Line Diner, most told us they're paying close attention to the campaign for governor.
Yeah, I've watched the debates. Some of them are getting pretty bad.
Tonight is a good one.
I'm just looking for an honest person to be in that office, and that's the key thing.
With no clear front runner so far and the state's highest office on the line, what do Vermonters long to see?
Well, I would just like to see them say and talk about what they would do if they were governor instead of slamming one another.
Once upon a time, there was a lot of talk about changing the tone in Washington.
The time for bickering is over.
But the bickering
hell no, you haven't.
Seems far from over.
Are you so ignorant? Are you so incompetent?
Let me tell you what I think incompetence and ignorance is.
Political analysts say many voters are fed up with the acrimony and partisan sniping in Congress.
They're going to continue to ram.
Their plan would take us back to the Bush years.
There are all these backdoor secret negotiations.
But they're more concerned about taking care of the fat cats in Wall Street.
Democrats blame Republicans, and Republicans blame Democrats.
Give me a break.
I'm as frustrated as anybody by it.
A recent study by Allegheny College found most Americans believe both parties share the blame. The question is how voters will respond at the ballot box. If Republicans win the House, as most pollsters predict.
I don't really expect the tone, the style to change
very much.
Gubernatorial candidate Duke Iona has spent his years as lieutenant governor urging good health, including getting vaccinations. Iona, at a recent state news conference, stressed the danger of flu.
It stops us from working. It stops our children from attending school, and it puts a hold on the household in general. So we want to have every tool available for our community in addressing this problem.
But Iona ignores his own advice.
I've never really been vaccinated in the past. I'm a creature of habit. I'm a person of habit.
Iona says he's neutral about flu shots.
I've read the literature on it. I've read the science on it. I say it has some merit to it, but I'm not convinced that the vaccines are more beneficial than harmful.
According to Haley, negotiations about a time and place aren't necessary.
I think he needs to read the press releases that are going out. That's how we find out what he's doing. He needs to read our press releases, and he'll see exactly what debates we've asked to participate in.
But according to political strategist Chip Felkel, setting up debates through news releases is not the way candidates usually handle things.
So while sometimes you see a lot of banter in the press, the fact is there's some conversation going on between the two organizations.
According to Felkel, the Haley campaign's announcement of debates without input from the other campaign is an attempt to control the message.
We brought the candidates from both parties together to work on this House so we could talk to them about cooperation in Washington.
I think if the Democrats are willing to give up their socialist agenda, I'd be happy to be bipartisan with them.
The less we use labels, the greater the likelihood we can all start talking.
In other words, if what we do is we place a name, and claim that someone has a socialist agenda, which is once again subject to interpretation, then what we do is we alienate the other.
Sparks flew when the topic of bipartisanship came up, and at the start of our conversation, the candidates didn't offer much hope for change.
Does it seem to you that either party can agree on anything at this point?
No, I don't think so. I'm all for bipartisanship, but I'm not going to trade out my values for the goal of bipartisanship.
KCRA 3, where the news comes first. Now, from Jackson Hall at the Mondavi Performing Arts Center, here is Golston Dart.
And good evening to our television, radio, and internet audience all across this state and beyond. And also good evening to all of you here at UC Davis at Jackson Hall at the Mondavi Center. We welcome you to this first debate between these two candidates this year.
And I want to talk to you about how we're going to get this state put back together, because there's no question, I think we have one of the most dysfunctional state governments in the entire country.
Why do you tell seniors that it's just somehow going to be okay? It's not going to be okay.
I'm not saying it's going to be okay. 2037, it's going to be okay, but we have to deal with this issue in a bipartisan way. We cannot do it in haste.
Raising the retirement age is not on the table.
Important. Not from the beginning, not with me.
What's interesting about Social Security, this is the one program in Washington, D.C. that's actually working.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of On the Record. Our commitment 2010, the candidates for state treasurer debate.
Representative, it's a little late in the game to get religion all of a sudden. 9.5 years is a long time for us to wait for you to show leadership on this issue.
I disagree with that, and I'd like to be able to
Go
respond.
ahead.
First of all, every state employee is in the public pension system. I am not taking a pension, and that's the right thing to do for me, and I hope that others will take the lead. I differ with you on this because I feel that all state elected officials, not just you and me, shouldn't be in the public pension system, and that's a big difference.
Not everyone here tonight holds elected office, but each of you is a father, a husband, or a son. How does your conduct in those capacities make you the better candidate? Mr. Vitter.
My greatest strength in life is my family.
A debate between Republican Lee Terry and Democrat Tom White.
I really believe if we're going to make a statement to the public, the citizens that want us to get spending under control, in the budget that Congress has control of, the discretionary budget, that we have to go back to 2008 levels.
The first thing we have to do is stop wasteful spending. And that is rife in Washington.
You've been responsible for the debt that we have in this country, and I just believe that we need to make some changes.
Well, again, I don't believe you've done your homework and know where the responsibility lies. You think about the Bush administration and what happened there, and include the tax rebates if you want to, or any other area you want to go to, did away with pay-as-you-go. They just stopped that.
We really do have to talk very straight with the people of Maine.
I have not said that we're going to get to 55%. What I have said is that we are not again going to finish 33 out of 36 in the competition for Race to the Top funding.
Commitment 2010, the gubernatorial debate.
As Lieutenant Governor, you held Christian prayer meetings in your state capitol office. Will you continue to hold these prayer services if you are elected?
I will give anybody who wants to have that opportunity to pray, an opportunity to pray.
Thank you, Mr. Iona. Rebuttal from Mr. Abercrombie.
I have no rebuttal. I respect the Lieutenant Governor's position.
The Granite State Debates. Now, the candidates for U.S. Senate.
How is that possibly going to create jobs in this economy, just helping multimillionaires?
Congressman Hodes, I understand why you want more money to be spent in Washington, because your record of spending is one, since you have served in Congress, the deficit has increased over 500%.
So many people are losing their homes in your district. What should the state do or not do to prevent foreclosures? Mr. Ehouse?
Well, I was the co-author of House Bill 3. It called for a conditional moratorium.
The first thing that we need to do is get people back to work. And we just talked about that a little bit, but jobs are the antidote to all of our problems.
It's a typical day at Kenny's Markets in Gettysburg. Except today, 3 of the shoppers at this grocery store are the 3 candidates running for Pennsylvania's 19th congressional seat. We asked Republican incumbent Todd Platts, Democrat Ryan Sanders, and independent Josh Monaghan to help us with a special shopping list designed to help voters get to know where the candidates stand on the issues. Our first stop in the store, the produce section, to pick up our first item, corn. Corn has become a symbol of renewable fuel. It's used to make ethanol. And as I put 2 ears into our shopping cart, I asked the candidates this question. How do you balance the need to produce renewable sources of energy and to get that to the consumer with the other need that's out there right now, which is to control spending in Washington? And Todd Platts, you're the incumbent, so we're going to ask you to answer first.
When you're looking at any expenditures related to investing in renewable energy, you have to weigh that against, well, if we don't make this investment and we stay more and more dependent on foreign oil, there's a huge cost to our economy by doing that.
With 1,000 pennies and one unforgettable treasurer, our time in Lebanon's Monument Park is nearing an end. But before we go, it's incumbent state Senate candidate Republican Mike Fulmer's turn to try his hand at managing Pennsylvania's piggy bank.
And what we need to be doing is, no pun intended here, Matt, is that we need to be squeezing every penny out of every tax dollar that we are spending and making sure that the monies are being spent appropriately.
For close to 50 years, Iowa has appointed judges with a merit selection and retention system, a system that was intended to keep politics out of the judicial system until now.
Liberal, out-of-control judges ignoring our traditional values and
the Iowa for Freedom campaign is urging Iowans to vote no on Iowa's 3 Supreme Court justices up for retention, all 3 part of the court's unanimous ruling on same-sex marriage. Drake University Law School Dean Alan Vestal.
If the opponents of same-sex civil marriage think that by not retaining one or more of the justices, it's going to change the result of the Varnum case, they're simply not correct.
Vestal says the organization's attempt at changing the court's same-sex ruling is misguided. Even if all the justices up for retention are unseated, that still won't change Iowa's law.
Mr. Garcia, the question I want to ask right now is, you have at least implied or said outright that the sheriff has influenced somehow these investigations. Do you have any proof of that?
Well, I think basically simply by the comments the sheriff has made, and the first and foremost one that comes to my mind is him going down to the district attorney's office to have me criminally investigated.
Even as local, state, and national economies drop, the campaign cash crop grows, right past any and all attempts to rein it in.
The campaigns get more expensive every year, John. There's no question about it.
The $25 grand spent on local GOP sample ballots is but a drop in this year's political ocean. Nationally, the running count on the Open Secrets website will soon hit $4 billion.
I don't have a solution to that, and frankly, that I don't think is terribly good for the system.
The system leaves candidates like John Williams scrambling in his race with Tracy Hunter for juvenile court judge. Both must time their ads for maximum effect. But with 52,000 people already asking for early ballots,
close to 25% of the people voting before Election Day,
the pressure to parcel it out just right over 35 days is intense.
Well, you can be on the cutting edge or the bleeding edge. So if you make a good decision, it could probably pay off
very well, and if you make a poor decision, you're wasting your resources.
We asked Ben Shelley and Linda Lovejoy what they will change first if elected.
To restore good government. Our government is ill-managed.
Right now, the old tribal code that we have, that we exist under and have been running with it, has prevented us from going forward.
Are you aware that there's...
These campaign volunteers are working the phones, pitching the convenience of early voting to party supporters.
By allowing you to avoid the hassle of election day lines.
37 states now offer some type of early voting, and in 32 of those states, citizens can vote early in person, according to the U.S. Elections Assistance Commission. Some states started as early as mid-September.
They're seeing the percentage of people voting before Election Day going way up. Like it can go as high as 80-90% of the people are voting prior to election.
John Fortier, author of a book on early voting, says the trend means candidates are having to extend their voter turnout operations, which can be expensive. In some states, the avalanche of ads and robocalls has been well underway for weeks.
Yes or no? They are easy answers. But in the battle for votes over State Question 744, it's proving to be a hard political fight. Question 744 is a ballot proposal to amend the Constitution. If approved, it would guarantee an increase in per-pupil funding for Oklahoma students. Currently, the state ranks 49th out of 50 states. The no side argues such a funding guarantee would put other state agencies at risk, like public safety, for example. The yes side disagrees, saying it would protect and help improve education, specifically day-to-day operation.
We asked candidates in the 2nd Congressional District race the following question. Illegal immigration is an issue that has not gone away. Most agree the border needs to be more secure. But what should happen to the tens of millions of illegals already in the country?
I think the important issue about the immigration issue is that we need to secure our borders and create a path to citizenship so that people who are working hard, paying taxes, and love our country can be productive citizens in our society going forward.
Right at the beginning, Barron Hill set the tone for Indiana's 9th District congressional race by attacking Todd Young on Social Security, an accusation the nonpartisan group factcheck.org called false.
Fact Check didn't have all the facts on their side at that particular time, and I have a lot of respect for Fact Check.
Barron Hill is lying, he's deceiving, and voters frankly cannot trust him.
The 9th District sprawls across all or parts of 20 counties and is roughly the size of Connecticut. Hill says he's recently walked 250 miles across parts of the district, while Young says he's put 90,000 miles on his Jeep in the last 2 years to get his message out.
It's that we need to restore a measure of certainty to our economy. So we have to stop this out-of-control, debt-fueled spending binge that we've been on.
Mikulski says her political values are a product of her childhood and Catholic education. Grew up in Highlandtown, the oldest of 3 sisters. Her parents own the neighborhood grocery store.
My father would open up the door of that grocery store every morning and say, "Good morning, can I help you?"
Mikulski says that's what she strives for on Capitol Hill, voting to fund science and technology programs, supporting healthcare reform, equal pay, and middle-class tax breaks. But what you may not know is that Mikulski is also a novelist, published 2 political thrillers, that she once worked as a ketchup taster near the Can Company on Boston Street.
I had dippers and buckets, and I'd be up on ladders and vats.
And that today, she's a blackberrying, Facebooking tweeter.
To go from being the kid from Highlandtown who sat on the front steps playing with jacks to now tweeting has been quite a leap for me.
For 2nd Congressional Democratic candidate Annie Custer, Concord is a special place.
I know all of the owners of all these businesses, you know, the camera shop and the graphic studio and the clothing shop, and I know their families, I know the issues that they've dealt with.
Custer grew up in Concord.
Hey, Steve Gordon, how are you? Good to see you. Thank you for everything.
She now lives in Hopkinton with her husband and 2 sons. She says New Hampshire is a good place to raise a family.
They played soccer and they played baseball, and we went to all the games, my husband and I, and I really appreciate the opportunities that people have here.
We know their names, and of course we've heard their ads, and both are from right here in Pittsburgh. And tonight we profile both of them.
Up first, Democrat Dan Honorado from those who know him best. Dan Honorado was born and grew up on Pittsburgh's north side, and from the beginning, he was always surrounded by family.
I had a big family, a big extended family. It wasn't unusual to have 25 to 30 people at my home on a Sunday growing up, and we still get together today.
On a brief break from the campaign trail, we caught up with Rick Scott and his family doing what they love the most.
All of us love to compete against each other.
Yes, we like to play pretty much all games, card games especially, and shuffleboard a lot too.
So Allison and I play a lot.
This is a rare moment, relaxing in the game room with his wife of 38 years, one of his 2 daughters, and his mother.
Did he get his competitiveness from you?
Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah, probably. We used to play, in my family, we used to play...
we played Hearts. We played a lot of cards.
And Monopoly.
And
she never beat me.
Oh, yes, I
did. April 9th, Scott announced his plans to run for governor, his first ever shot at a public office.
I've probably been here 25 nights in 6 months. So it's travel. You start 5 or 6 in the morning, and you do radio. You do then you do events, all day long, and then you finish sometime between 10 and 12 at night.
The Scotts love to travel as a family, but in their own backyard is a beauty unmatched. This is where Scott spends quiet moments. He also admits he never watches TV.
I wanted to be doing something rather than me watching something.
You know, I get to be governor. I'm going to work every day to create jobs. I've done it before, and I can do it again.
Kasich says businesses are flying away from Ohio, and not just to low-wage countries like China.
The problem is we're losing jobs to other states at 5 times the rate that we lose them to other countries. You have to be competitive. I mean, you have to be a state where people can where businesses think, first of all, they can make a profit, and if they make a profit, they can hire people. So you need to take the barriers down. We need to have a more effective and efficient government, but we have to have lower taxes.
He was a congressman. He was. I call him a Wall Street congressman.
Governor Strickland accuses Kasich of being a creature of Wall Street in Congress and afterward, working for Lehman Brothers before it went bankrupt. And indeed, Kasich says he wants CEOs to help him direct Ohio's economic policy.
So critics say we're looking at a state-sponsored crony capitalism.
Look, if the governor practices the politics of distraction. He's lost 397,000 jobs since he's been governor. He came in, he promised to turn Ohio around, and Ohio has gone down as a result of his leadership. I don't believe that the current system of letting bureaucrats go out and talk to businesses works. But if we can create a not-for-profit organization where we have skilled people who wake up every day trying to solve our biggest economic problems, this will work.
If you are still on the fence about the race for governor, you can visit the candidate profiles to see their answers to crucial questions affecting you.
District 1 congressional race between Shelley Pingree and Dean Scottress could go right down.
You eliminate the property tax and replace it with a broad-based sales tax.
What did you hear that you liked or that you did not like?
Live wire discussion, this is what you will be prompted to. Here to the live watcher section. All you got to do is click on here, make a comment.
We're holding a live wire discussion on KITV.com.
We are hosting another one of our lunchtime chats with candidates for the major offices in New Hampshire.
Your search for Election Day knowledge starts on the PittsburghChannel.com. All you have to do is take your mouse to the top of our homepage and click Commitment 2010. It takes you to our election page with the top headlines. Scroll down for more local and national election headlines on the left. On the right, we have every resource a voter needs under Resources.
All right, well, first question, obviously you've been running for governor now for a while. Why are you the right man for the job?
Well, first of all, I have a lot of experience.
Congratulations. You have been here before. You were the mayor in 2002, so you know how big of a job you have.
Well, it's going to be a tremendous job. I know we've got to do a lot of work.